I know it's still waiting. It says waiting on us now. Now we're broadcasting now. All right. So, hey, it's been a while for us to get on here. I can tell you, it feels like rocket science back here with the computer open over here and all the buttons I got to push over here. So kind of bear with us tonight. But super excited about the Arch Manning commitment. We'll kind of get into that, and we'll get into how it could affect the 2023 recruiting class. But those that are in here tonight, we appreciate you listening. It's been kind of, hit and miss with us doing content. Currently, Jeremy was out in the desert in California, and I'm currently enrolled in school and trying to hold down a full-time position at the same time. So, or full-time schedule at the same time at work. So stuff's been kind of rough, but we'll try to do as many shows as we possibly can leading up to the football season and during the football season.
Yeah, man. Like you said, just happy to be back. It has been a long sabbatical for us. Like you said, military training took me out of the loop for about 3 months. And then, like you said, he just hopped in a master's program, trying to transition into probably teaching and coaching here over the next couple of years. So congratulations to you, man, on that success. It is about dang time, Tracy. But what better way to kick this thing off with basically the commitment of Arch Manning and where that takes the program and where that takes this 23 recruiting cycle. So we got a couple of topics that we're going to talk about. That first being back-to-back 1.00 composite quarterbacks now going to be on campus next year with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. And then Texas having out of the three composite 1.000 quarterbacks, you had Vince Young that led Texas to a national championship. You got Quinn Ewers, who I've said, and many have said along with me, has the best high school arm since Matthew Stafford. We said that multiple times. His arm talent succeeds that of many quarterbacks that's gone before him. And then you're talking about Arch Manning with the legacy of the Mannings, with grandfather Archie, who played at Ole Miss, played with the New Orleans Saints, and, of course, his uncles, Peyton and Eli. And if you listen to Peyton talk on the Book of Manning show, he said his dad, Cooper, who played wide receiver at Ole Miss, was his older brother, and Arch's son or Arch's father was the best athlete out of the bunch. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, you hear all these after the commitment happened. I'm going to tell you, I called Jeremy damn near Tuesday and Wednesday night. And we haven't talked a lot. We really haven't talked a lot, with him being in California in the desert with doing Army things. And then me being in school, we really haven't talked as much as what we usually do. I'm really in class about 6 days out of 7, 6 days out of 7. Trying to do 2 4-week semesters. But I called Jeremy on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I was getting frustrated. And I think I was getting burnt out. And I actually went over to one of the Georgia, the Dogs 247 site, and I had actually sent a screenshot to Jeremy, and I said, this is the way I feel. Like, you almost get burnt out because you've been waiting so long. There's a top 3 school, and you happen to be in that top 3, but it's like, when do you choose? Because with a quarterback, the earlier the commitment, the better, because now all of a sudden, not with just Arch Manning, any of these Malachi Nelson, any of these other top, 3 quarterbacks, top 4 quarterbacks, once you get those usually in the fold, other recruits are going to follow them because they want to play with talented guys around them, especially offensive talent. But I called him, I said, I'm burnt out. But I also was frustrated to the point where it was like, Steve Sarkeesian, and again, people are going to be upset how I say this. You're talking about a team that went 5-7 last year, competing against Nick Saban, who's been doing this for, national championships, since 2010, and then, trying to fight with Kirby Smart at Georgia, who just came off a national championship. But then you put all your eggs in one basket, and knowing that if you didn't get Arch Manning, your class was probably going to finish outside the top 20. But if you did get Arch Manning, your class was probably going to finish in the top 3 or top 5. Let's say top 5 with the talent that you have an opportunity to get. We'll talk about those guys. But that's where I was kind of at. It was like push or pull, you know what I'm saying? But we need to make I was ready for him to make a call. Thank goodness it happened 2 days after my frustration started on Tuesday, because I think if it would have went a little longer into the fall, with a quarterback, it's important to get those guys in the fold early. And thank goodness he picked us and he did it. I think the way he did it, one tweet, he had like 35,000 followers on Twitter, and he's following 0 people. And the only tweet that he ever, put on there was I'm committed to Texas. Hook 'em was a sweet way to do it, man. And I'm telling you, 200,000 likes later, definitely a big deal.
Yeah, and when you brought that up about being burnt out with the Arch commitment, I think what Quinn Ewers allows you to do is put all those eggs in one basket. Again, Quinn's basically coming into his freshman year at the University of Texas, and as it's being seen, Arch is coming, and Arch's family said that he's probably going to redshirt his freshman year. So if Quinn starts this year and then Arch redshirts next year, which would be his freshman year, you're really looking at really no competing there. You got Quinn, who would be a junior, the upperclassman, and then Arch coming up behind him 2 years later, which gives you a little bit of space there. And I think that's what allowed Steve Sarkeesian that put all your eggs in one basket type deal, and he can't miss on that 1.000. So he was probably going to, and they knew that Arch was going to commit before his senior season. Peyton said that today at the Peyton Manning passing camp, that it was important for him to make that decision. That way he could concentrate on his senior year of high school football and enjoy that process, because he had talked to Peyton about his decision at Tennessee, about the timeline for that as well. And he said, once you take that final official visit and you know where you're going to go, there's no use in dragging it out. Go ahead and commit to that school and enjoy your senior season. And so I think everybody knew the timeline. The Texas coaching staff knew the timeline. The Manning family knew the timeline. They knew where they kind of stacked up. As he's been to Texas 4 times. So they had a good relationship with A.J. Milwee, with Steve Sarkeesian. So, yeah, putting his eggs in one basket, he did that. But I think he always was very confident that he was going to win this race for Arch Manning. And I think Quinn Ewers kind of gives him that little bit of security blanket, knowing he's got that kind of quarterback for the next 4 years until they start competing for that job.
Yeah, and again, and what I know, we'll go through this list of quarterbacks here probably in a couple of bullets. And one of those guys is Malik Murphy, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm the biggest Malik Murphy fan. I was actually talking to a buddy of mine last night on the phone. He tweeted he sent a screenshot of Arch Manning's commitment, Twitter commitment, and he was talking about, well, what's going to happen to your quarterback room? You're going to have a whole bunch of people transfer out, and you're going to have all these other things happen. And I said, well, there's a guy between Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. And I'm not to one. Yes, again, you're talking about a legacy of 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. Absolutely 100%, but at the same time, and Jeremy's going to talk a bit about this a little bit, you want to make sure you're stacking the best 85 players on your squad, the best 85 players, not the best 81 players, the best 85 players. And the only way you get that is you compete. So I'm not one to just hand the ball off and say, okay, it's going to go from Quinn Ewers and he's going to exit for the NFL after his, second year here. But, what happens to Malik Murphy? He's probably size wise is probably NFL size. You're talking about a guy that's 6'5", 235 pounds, that's got a rocket arm, that just needed to work on some things. And there's a reason that Steve Sarkeesian went out and got Malik Murphy, because he believes in Malik Murphy. He believes in what he can do as a quarterback. So him and Manning, when Manning comes in here as a redshirt freshman, and Malik Murphy being a sophomore, those guys are going to have to fight it out. I'm not just going to hand the ball over to Manning and say, okay, you're a Manning, you're going to follow Quinn Ewers. To me, Malik Murphy, has a dog in the fight, and I think that's who he is as a competitor.
And you got 6 quarterbacks currently on the roster. You have Quinn Ewers, Hudson Card, Malik Murphy, Charles White, Ballard, and Cole Lord. 6 on the roster. There's going to be attrition. Again, you got to make the best 85 scholarship players on, and I recognize that a couple of those guys aren't on scholarship, but 6 quarterbacks, will be 7 with Arch. You're going to see some attrition at that position, just like you did with the wide receiver position. When you got guys like Whittington, O'Meara, Worthy, Jay Hall comes in, Isaiah Nair comes in, that Dejon Harrison's going to move. That Cavante Dixon's going to move. That there's just not enough roster spots and scholarships for just overload at one position. So attrition's going to hit the quarterback room. Where will it hit? I don't know. Which one of these guys are looking to leave? It depends on where the depth chart ends up. But yeah, I'm not disqualifying Malik Murphy's skill set, not disqualifying Quinn Ewers' skill set. I think once you get down to Charles Wright and Ballard and Lord, I don't think they have they're not scholarship players. Charles Wright is a scholarship guy, but Ballard and Lord are not. So you might see them stick around the program and earn their education at the University of Texas, but there is going to be some attrition somewhere in that quarterback room. And again, the goal is to build up that defensive line, to continue to put a second class of offensive linemen together like you did last year, and work on that linebacker core and find some depth there. And I think that's what this commitment out of Arch Manning will allow you to do: set you up for the likes of DJ Hicks, set you up for the likes of Anthony Hill, set you up for the likes of Derek Williams, the safety out of Louisiana, to build that defense. Again, I think the skill position is set. The running backs that we have in that running back room are fantastic. We just went over the wide receivers, and I'm probably sure I'm missing a couple because I didn't talk about Brendan Thompson and the other guys that came in this year. But so I think you got to continue to build those offensive, defensive lines, and I hope that's what this commitment does: is brings the Cooks, brings the Cedric Baxters, but also brings those dominant offensive linemen to continue to build that group, and then bring some defense. Because again, you got a ton of defensive linemen that you brought in last year with Chris Ross, Justice Finkley, Javon Tapp, but we need to continue to solidify that position and grow it deeper, because again, everybody's talking about 1-0 quarterbacks against each other. Hell, I want that across every position on the football field. I want dominant 5-stars competing against each other, and one having to find a way to transfer out to get playing time because another guy beat him out with that position.
Yeah, biggest thing, man, for me, you're talking about, obviously the offensive skill players that are probably are more than likely going to follow Arch Manning to Texas. I wholeheartedly agree with you, man. We need to bring some of these 5-star defensive linemen, linebackers. You're talking about Javion Taviano out of Arlington Martin. You're talking about Malik Muhammad out of Sauk. The sky's the limit for cornerbacks in the state of Texas, and I think Texas has to. They have to win some of these. I think currently right now, Malik Murphy is probably between Alabama and Texas A&M and Texas. Javion Taviano, you don't really hear from him much. I can tell you the crystal ball's been on Javion Taviano to Texas for a long time on both, all three sites. Rivals, if you go look at Rivals on 3 and you look at 247, those guys have been all Javion Taviano to Texas. But again, it really starts with that defense side of the ball. One, because Arch Manning's not going to play for a couple of years, right? He's going to sit there. He's not going to play. But these defensive line and defensive line and linebackers and skill players on the offensive side of the ball, and your cornerbacks are probably going to have an opportunity to start way before Arch Manning is handed the ball when he starts his first game at Texas. But it's who he brings in with him is absolutely. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I do want to address Tracy's comment here because I think it's true. I talked to us blue in the face last year about recruits seeing progressively the team getting better, right? That from possession to possession, game to game, but that has to be answered in results. And he's absolutely right. 5-7 with progression every week is still a 5-7 record. So Tracy's absolutely right. If you want to continue to compete for these 5-star players, production has to be on the football field and has to come in a source of wins. Like he's saying, I'm saying, you're saying, I'm sure this whole Texas fan base is saying, we need to win 9 games. We need to win 10 games. We need to win 11 games to continue to compete with these. Because again, after a 5-7 season, you got the number 1 rated player in the country. After a 5-7 season, you still brought in a top 10 recruiting class in 2022. But somewhere, somehow, they're going to have to produce wins to continue this streak that they're on, being able to produce, great recruiting classes, although the record has suffered. The product on the football field is not as good. But we chronicled what happened to 19. We talked about what happened to 20 and how this roster has been toned over. I would say at the last time we talked about it was about 45%. At this point, I think it's about 60 to 70%. Steve Sarkeesian has turned this roster over since he became the head football coach at Texas. But you're absolutely right, Tracy. It's got to manifest in football victories. It has to they got to continue to see this product competing for Big 12 championships, soon to be SEC championships, and football playoff appearances.
Yeah. David Williams says it, man. Texas needs to eventually have a depth chart of at least 3 players good enough to compete and win on the field at every position, so that you're constantly churning those things out. That's what these programs have been able to do. Is put 5-star on top of 5-star on top of 5-star, or 5-star on top of high 4-star guys that are supposed to come in and play at an elite level. Absolutely right, man. You need to have 33 guys on each side of the ball that can change a game. Obviously from position to position that could change. Obviously quarterback, you want to make sure your quarterbacks, at least your top 2 quarterbacks are guys that can come in and win you games. But really 33 on each side of the ball is where you want to be at. You're talking about 66, but 85 players, go out there and get the best 85 players. And Steve Sarkeesian's, I think, was a top 5 class. You signed a top 5 class after a 5-7 season. Now you went out there and you signed the top ranked quarterback, Arch Manning, into this class and have an opportunity to probably sign another top 3 class. I think he's doing it right. I think him coming in and turning that roster over, like you said, by 65 or 70% is what needed to happen. Like I said, those 2018, 2019 class, that those guys had to eventually be turned over to Sarkeesian's guys and his coordinators so that they can make an impact in developing, and we can actually see these guys being developed.
I want to talk about Eric's comment right here. Arch isn't going to decommit, so that can minimize the decommitments if we lose. Again, Arch, I believe you're correct, Eric. I don't think Arch is going to decommit. I think he'll be signing his letter of intent in February. And again, commitments are non-binding, right? Until they put pen to paper, there's not a done deal. But what I will say is those guys that are fringe players that are committing because of that Arch effect, or because they want to play with a Manning, because we know it's going to bring extra eyes on the football team. As big as Texas program is, I think the Manning family being a part of the Texas football program for the next 5 years, 4 or 5 years, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is, brings more eyes. You're going to see Archie in the stands. You're going to see Peyton. You're going to see Eli. You're going to see his father, Cooper, in the stands every Saturday. And I think other football players understand that. It's going to bring more eyes and attention towards them. But what I am saying is for those fringe players who are going to join this football team because they want to play with Arch Manning, are still going to have to see results, because playing with one guy doesn't make a team. Again, the quarterback is probably the most important player in college football, no doubt. But if you don't block for them and you don't create holes, for your running backs to run through, and you can't stop the run, and you can't put pressure on the quarterback, and you're not winning football games, then they might choose to go to another program who's competing for national championships.
And this comment by Clint Geller here, Joe Cladis, it's not just Arch Manning that chose Texas, but it was the Manning family. That tells you what you need to know regarding what the belief is in Steve Sarkeesian, not as just a quarterback guru, but as a head coach. That's what that tells me. You had an opportunity he had an opportunity to go to, again, 2 teams that have won a national championship in the last 3 years in Alabama or Georgia. But their belief in Steve Sarkeesian and what he's doing with this program, and obviously what he can do with quarterbacks and what he's done with quarterbacks, gave them a belief that this is where he needs to be. I know they said that they left it in Arch Manning's hands to say, okay, it's your choice. But Arch Manning reaching out to Peyton Manning, I think a couple of days ago, and said, hey, how did you make your decision on where you wanted to go? And he told him, you'll know in your heart where you want to go after you take that last visit. Give it a couple of days, think about it, but you're going to know where you want to go. But for them 5 guys to be at probably Archie's house before the Manning camp this week was a big deal, because I promise you they discussed this with him, and they made a decision that a pro style offense that Steve Sarkeesian runs is the best thing to get into the NFL. People will joke around, well, you got Arch Manning to come to Texas. Neither one of the Mannings won a national championship in college, but they won Super Bowls in the NFL. So that tells you what you're getting in pedigree and legacy. And if Arch is having a bad day, or he's going through some serious situations at Texas during his redshirt, year, he can always reach out to 2 Super Bowl winners and say, hey man, how do you handle this situation? Which is bigger than anything to me.
Yeah, and Manning's didn't win a college football playoff or a college national championship, but Ole Miss probably was never going to win a national championship, regardless of who the quarterback was. And Eli led him to Cotton Bowl, and he was a stud in college. And if you remember, Peyton Manning might not have won the national championship or Heisman Trophy, but the year after, T. Martin led that team to a national championship the year after Peyton had graduated. I guarantee a lot of players on that football team aren't playing at Tennessee without Peyton Manning being the quarterback there. So, yes, it was almost like he didn't get it, no, but they won it the year after, and I think him being there probably created a lot of that for the University of Tennessee. Do want to congratulate Ivan Melendez on the Golden Spikes Award winner as the best baseball player in college. If you go to MLB.com, I kind of been watching the Major League draft projections, and they have him as like the 120th or 130th best pro prospect. I think that's sorely underrated. He has the best bat in college baseball. They say he has a lack of defense. I don't see it. He plays first base. He'll get a chance to play DH now that we have DH across the league. So, yeah, we'll stop this football talk just for a second to congratulate Ivan Melendez winning the Golden Spikes Award for the best player in college baseball. Well, job well done.
Hell yeah, man. 130th is crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? With a bat like that.
We missed you guys too. Again, it's been about 4 months. Happy to be back. What better week than to kick this thing back off than the recruitment and win and commitment of Arch Manning. We talked about over the last, what would be 20 minutes, how we think it's going to affect the program in a positive light. Do you want to switch over to how we think it's going to affect the 23 class and the names that he could possibly bring with him? Or do you
real quick? I want to bring up something real quick. We went to the spring game and we had an awesome time meeting a lot of wonderful people. That was really, really cool. So for those that we had an opportunity to meet, I know, Fanatic Perspective, hell, all of the Lando Show, all of the YouTube content creators, and then have an opportunity to meet Queen Bee, who's like the queen of like Twitter Spaces now, I think on Tuesday night. So if you're not tuning in, or I think it's Tuesday nights, get me wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, Queen Bee. But it's one of those things. It was really cool to kind of meet everybody. It's crazy to think this is our first night back. Me and Jeremy, maybe crickets in here, maybe might see 20 people, but there's currently 77 people watching, probably between Twitter and YouTube. So we definitely appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. Again, like I said, when we started the show, it's going to be difficult for me and Jeremy to be on here. We're going to try at a minimum once a week. But again, me being in school, this takes up a lot of my time. So we had to come on tonight, obviously with the news yesterday. Plus we miss it. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing we miss. We enjoy this. This is really stress-free, but for us, it's fun. This is our passion. It just hasn't given us the opportunity to do it. But I don't want to promise that we're going to be able to give multiple shows a week. I'm just hoping that we can do one show a week. Me and Jeremy will have to figure out what that date is. We'll do one show. And if we got to stay on here for more than an hour to give, to answer questions and talk about what we need to talk about, then that's what we'll do. Yeah,
wholeheartedly. And what we will try to do is his schedule's a little bit more busy than mine. Over the next couple of months, I'm actually going to move down there to San Antonio for 2 months, probably stay with them from mid-September to mid-November, right in the heart of football season. So we might be podcasting from the same house in different rooms come September. But I'm transitioning between jobs. So I'm taking quite a bit of leave over the next couple of months. So I'm not afraid to go solo, as awkward as it is. So you may see me pop on here with late breaking news if he's not available for like short 20-minute state of the program, especially when ball starts and they're talking about depth chart. If he's not available, I'll come on here if it's live, or I'll try to get some collaborations with some YouTube content creators or our friends from Rivals and 247 to come on with me to kind of to pass the hours along with you guys who give great questions and great comments throughout our live shows. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I know everybody's got their phone handy. I don't know if they're looking at Hayes Fawcett on Twitter or just keep refreshing here in about 7 minutes. I think Jonte Cook is going to release something. He's had something on, I think on his Instagram for about 2 hours with a time clock there, and the time is ticking. Me and Jeremy talked about this ad nauseum about this commitment or non-commitment. And I don't know if it's going to be a commitment or not. I know some people were talking about it up at the top of the chat about Cook. I'm not sure if it's going to be a commitment or if it's going to be a top three. To me, Cook is almost a signed, sealed, and delivered type guy to Texas. I just think he may be prolonging the process. But I think we should be on commitment watch for probably 2 to 3 guys this weekend. And I think we have to do that to keep this momentum up. I think it's absolutely important right now. I think by looking at probably the next 2 weeks, I think we may be in the top 5 in the recruiting rankings. It's obviously early in the recruiting rank or in the recruiting cycle, but it would definitely be nice to go ahead and get some of these, 4-star, 5-star guys in there. And some of the guys we're talking about are some of the guys that are currently on the 40 acres right now are probably looking to get back. Do you think, my question to you, Jeremy, do you think do you think recruits that may have not given us an opportunity or kind of looked at us outside of their top three with the commit of Arch, do you think they come back into the fold?
Absolutely, I think they do. And talking about a kid like Cedric Baxter, let me backpedal real quick. So like Clint said, we have no idea what Jonte is going to do in the next 5 minutes. But we will say that I will say that I did shoot my shot. And if he does make some kind of announcement, I did ask him to pop on the show. I did send him a link and say, hey, man, after your announcement, if you don't mind popping on, please do. So if he pops in here, I will definitely join the show. And whatever we got going on at that particular time will become focused on Jonte Cook, again, a guy from our hometown, DeSoto, Texas. So if he does become a Longhorn, he pops in here, or commit to the Longhorns, I will say, and pops in here, whatever we're talking about at that time will go away and we'll focus on him. But yeah, to be said, we don't know what he's going to do. But I did get a chance to go back and look at Cedric Baxter's game film today, because that was a kid that I didn't have a whole lot of knowledge of. You know, we were chasing Ruben Owens, didn't know, you know, there's thumbnails out there with Arch Manning, Ruben Owens, and Jonte Cook from a visit probably last summer or early fall. Don't remember exactly the time frame. And so it was always those three, right? So never really looked at Cedric Baxter Jr. Had a chance to watch his film today. 6'1", 215 pounds, breakaway speed. You're not going to arm tackle this kid. So he's another guy who's visited, came into the program, a guy that you have an opportunity for. But what I want to see, and to go back to your question, is Arch's commitment going to bring more folks in the fold? And I hope it does on the defensive side of the football. I'm looking at names like Derek Williams, the safety out of Louisiana, which happens to be Arch Manning's home state. You guys know that. Anthony Hill, the linebacker out of Denton, who everybody has prognosticated to A&M, but is a 5-star stud from Denton Ryan. We know that we have Jatavian Sanders on the roster. We have a pipeline to the Delatorre family there at Denton Ryan. It'd be great to get him here. And then DJ Hicks, a kid who's a top 5 defensive lineman. Lord knows the Texas roster needs great defensive linemen, who saw Texas early, has been all around the country. Again, he's one of those guys who has offers from every, Power 5 school across the landscape. But rumor came out last night that when Arch committed to Texas, that he had some interest in coming back. Again, our friend Mike Roach reached out to his family, and he said, no, that wasn't exactly true, that he reached out to the school, but he will be taking a visit back to Texas later on in the summer or the fall. So I think he does bring you back into play for a lot of 23 recruits. Again, I think as far as skill position on the offensive side, I think we're pretty well set for the next couple of years, 3 years. Saying that we get the Baxters in this class, that we get the Cooks, that we have an opportunity to get a Jalen Hill or Jaquez Petway. We already have Trey Wisner, another DeSoto kid, as a running back in this class. Where I want to see this commitment pay off is in the big uglies. Give me some offensive linemen, give me some defensive linemen and linebackers. Hey, if I was Arch Manning, that's who I'm on the phone with. It's the guys that are going to protect me and the guys that are going to potentially sack me in class or sack me in practice. That's the guys I want to be talking to at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think how many? I guess my question is what do you think the limit of wide receivers are in this class, and how with his commitments, there's more than a couple of wide receivers that probably you didn't think you had a chance with that are probably going to reach out to you and say, hey, Arch Manning just committed, do you have a spot for me? Where do you limit the wide receivers? Where do you limit the wide receivers?
I don't know, because you already have one committed to the class. You already have Ryan Niblick, who's committed to the class. If you tell me I can get 2 of the 3 out of Jalen Hill, Jaquez Petway, and Jonte Cook, give me 3. I would take 3, but again, you're not going to turn down a top 50 football player. So if all 3 of those want to come to the University of Texas, then it's probably 4. But I got my eyes on those 3 guys, in-state guys right now: Jonte Cook, Jaquez Petway, and Jalen Hill. And if I can get all 3, I take all 3.
Because the same thing with tight ends. You just got 2 tight ends that have already committed to you, but you got another one out there in Deuce Robinson out of Arizona, who's like I think he's top 15 in the class, or top 15 ranked, in the class as a tight end, but also a baseball player. They say he's almost a better baseball player than he is a football player. And Texas ain't going to turn down good baseball players. So, but I know him and Arch have a good relationship as well. But that's where you find yourself in is like, damn, I just took two tight ends. How many tight ends do we need in this class? But you're not going to turn down Deuce Robinson. Does this commitment make you have to slow roll some of the guys that you may have already had relationships with?
And that's this is a guy like Jaylen Brown who showed interest in the program, right? But he's not a name we've heard. Is he slotted higher than those guys in some recruiting services? Absolutely is. But I know they've created a relationship with Jalen Hale. I know they've created a relationship with Jaquez Petway, and I know they've created a relationship with Jonte Cook. And if I get those three, not saying I wouldn't take Jaylen Brown if one of those three guys decided to go somewhere else, but I know the relationships with those three guys are more solid than probably any other wide receiver, 23 wide receiver out there. What was your question? I'm sorry, I got distracted by his question.
No, about tight ends. You got two tight ends in the class. You have another one that has a relationship in Deuce Robinson that's out of Arizona. That's like the top tight end in the nation. Do you take another tight end? You're going to obviously take Deuce Robinson because he's that good. But do you limit how fast, or do you slow roll some of these guys you may have had an already really good relationship that may have been on the precipice to commit because this changes the momentum of your recruiting class?
I think we saw this last year, and we talked about this with Ronald Lewis. Ronald Lewis was a corner, and again, you're talking about a different position. You're talking about a different classification. He was a 3-star cornerback that committed early out of Warren Easton High School in Louisiana. And we asked ourselves this question. We said, we got this kid who's the 9th at the time, the 900 best player in the country. The defensive back coach brought him to camp. They offered him. He committed. But at a certain point, when guys like Ryan Watts started coming to the picture as a possible transfer, and then you started grabbing cornerbacks that were higher slotted than him, then you saw his scholarship offer go away. What you're going to do is you're going to continue to offer kids, and I don't think it's a good idea for anybody on the staff to slow play a kid. Now, we talked about kids slow playing at university, but I think these type receivers that we're talking about, this list that we built that Arch Manning can affect are high 4-star, high 5-star caliber players. There's no 3 stars on our list, right? And so I think you continue to offer the kids that you think make that best 85 and know what your scholarship limitation is for the 23 class. And as you get closer to February, then you have to have those hard conversations. Hey, we'd like to have you as a preferred walk-on. We can no longer offer you a scholarship. Do you still want to come to Austin and play on our football team? If you don't, then you find what young Ronald Lewis did, and he took a scholarship to TCU, and he'll be playing against us on Saturdays. But recruiting is difficult because, again, there's a group right there, 15 student athletes right now that are on campus right now that are probably being shown all the greatest things the University of Texas has to offer, and they may want to leave here with an offer, and they may want to commit once they get that offer. But again, commitments are non-binding, offers are non-binding until you put that letter in February, and now the early signing day in December. All this stuff really is just dating, And that's kind of the way you look at it. Hey, I'm going on a date with this female. Hey, I enjoyed my date, but guess what? I got another date with a female next week, or vice versa. If ladies with men, if you're single, you're single. You're out there enjoying yourself, and whoever wins. But it's relationships, brother. That's what I think it comes to.
So 7:00 came and gone. Top 3 of Oregon, Michigan, and Texas. But the thing about Michigan is Michigan insiders, both on Rivals and on 247, have already crystal balled Cook to Texas. I said the same thing. Somebody said, whoa, Aggies weren't in there. Their excuse will be, if you go to their board here in about 5 minutes, why he's not in their top 3, because he doesn't want to play behind Evan Stewart. Okay, Evan Stewart signed last year, and Jonte Cook doesn't want to have to be worried about playing behind Evan Stewart because he won't be able to see the ball. That's going to be their excuse. I'm telling you now. Go to the board in about 5 minutes and look up why Jonte Cook didn't put him in the top 3, and I promise you that's going to be on the bingo card.
These kids were teammates on Offerville.
Yep.
They played together. They played 7-on-7 together. We watched them play together. I don't think Jonte's worried about his ego when it comes to Evan Stewart. I've seen them line up on the same side of the football field, one in the slot and one outside, and I've seen them lined up on the other side of the football field, playing both the X and the Z. Like I don't think competition. Again, when you're the top 50 player in the country, I don't think you worry about. You can't be worried about other football players on that roster. Just like you asked me earlier, or we talked about his thought process of I'm not going to commit right now because I don't want to look like I committed because Arch committed. I don't think that's anything that you worry about as an athlete. I think if I want to go to Texas and they just brought in the number one commit, the best quarterback in the 23 class, is somebody that I want to play with, that I've developed a relationship with, that I've been on multiple visits with, and then I pulled the trigger and I join them. But it's a top 3 right now. Like you say, I don't think Michigan is a player. I really don't think Oregon is a player. If you go on 3 site right now, Michigan and Oregon are nowhere in their projections. Texas is 82%. A&M was at 13%, and A&M didn't get – they weren't part of the Christmas card list that he just put out 5 or 6 minutes ago. And just like the Georgia folks saying that Manny didn't have a committable offer to their school. They're always going to come with some kind of spin. After they're not chosen, they're going to come with some kind of spin, just like maybe we would if we weren't the choice for somebody, for some athlete. But it's just spin. That's all it is.
This could come back and bite me in the ass. I'm gonna put a crystal ball in for Jonte Cook at a 9. At a 9. Okay. That it could
Y'all heard it here.
Y'all heard it. So if it doesn't happen, sorry. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I think it's a 9. So for Jonte Cook, and I think Cedric Baxter, I think he's on an unofficial currently right now. The only official I think Cedric Baxter's actually taken is to Texas. He's on an unofficial this weekend at Texas A&M. And if you listen to Will Fong, I think on his book around this weekend, Cedric Baxter was 1A to Texas and then 1B to Texas A&M. So I think this weekend will tell you kind of where you sit with Cedric Baxter. But again, if you go back and look at the crystal balls that were placed for Cedric Baxter on all platforms, they're all to Texas. So it's just really, I think the playing, I hate to say, the playing the game and pushing the commitment out just a little bit, but I think when it's all said and done, I think that's probably going to be your triplets in this class, man. I think Cedric Baxter, Jonte Cook, and Arch Manning, which is a very, very good place to be.
Yeah, generally, if you get phoned, by Will Fong from 247, he's an insider up there that is in the know. Cedric Baxter's been phoned to Texas. I feel really good about these 2 recruitments, about Jonte and Cedric Baxter Jr. I really do. I think I'm not saying that's why Ruben Owens decided to go to Louisville. But what I am saying is I saw the film today of Cedric Baxter Jr. I'm very impressed with his abilities. 6'1", 215 pounds, very fast, very strong, very elusive for 215 pounds, and he can grow. They said there's projectability to be up to 230, 235 pounds, and that's a juggernaut with the speed that if he can maintain the speed that he currently has in that 215-pound frame and a 230-pound frame. This is a guy that could carry the ball 20, 30 times a game. So very impressed with his film. Like I say, not dissing Ruben Owens. Ruben Owens made the decision to go to Louisville after once committing to Texas very, very early. Went out and saw the landscape, decided that Louisville was the place he wanted to play. But I think if you get a guy like Cedric Baxter Jr., you're not missing Ruben Owens near as much as you would be if he didn't come in. And again, you got to get already committed to the class, and Trey Wisner, who is a stud, like I said, out of alma mater in DeSoto, who's a transfer from Waco. He played at Waco Conley last year. He transferred into DeSoto, so he plays alongside of Jonte Cook. But got a chance to watch his film today. He's a little slider back, 5'10", 180 pounds, but definitely got some jets and definitely got some wiggle. Very, very welcome addition to the football team. But again, if you can get Baxter in there along with Trey Wisner, I think you did pretty well for yourself at the running back room. But again, I need this to manifest in offensive lineman. I need the big uglies to want to come to the University of Texas. pretty quick, because that's where we need help, is in stopping the run, rushing the passer, and keeping the opponent out of the backfield.
Hey, Colby Phillips here. Crystal ball from Clint. Going to have to start paying for this content. That's no inside information. That's a gut feel. That crystal ball is just a gut feel of where the Jonte Cook situation is. Obviously, but again, if you're looking at the tea leaves and you're reading, stuff on 247, you're looking at where insiders from all schools are placing their bets on where he would go in forms of crystal balls or their projections. Texas is where it's at. That's kind of where I'm at. I have no inside information, so there's no reason to pay for any of our content.
And I agree with David. I think the 23 in-state recruiting class is as good as it's ever been in the state of Texas. There are probably 10 legitimate 2023 receivers that could be dominant at Texas or anywhere else in the country. That's why I say you don't have to look outside the state. If you can get 2 out of the 3 of Petway, Cook, or Hale to go along with Ryan Niblett, you're doing pretty doggone well. And that's just the surface. Like, we're not talking about Jaden Greathouse. If you're looking for a different body type, a larger body type. Now, folks are saying that he's looking to Notre Dame, and that's probably a done deal. But he's from right there in Austin Westlake. I don't think that recruitment's over. But like you said, there's studs all across the state, David. And if you can get 2 or 3 of those guys, then I think you're done. I think, like I said, with the Halls, the Worthies, the Whittingtons, the Omirs, the Thompsons, and I know when I start listing off names that I always forget someone. But that's just saying that this receiver room is stacked, and you continue to add to it. But I think 3 or 4 is probably the limitation for receivers for 23, in my opinion. So if you can get those along with the kid that's already committed, I think you're good. And then you start looking, like I say, to the defensive side of the ball is where, because again, this team scored 44 points a game last year. That's good enough to win 10, 11 ball games most seasons. Got to stop the run. Got to put pressure on the quarterback. Got to hold opponents to less than 20 points, and then you're right back in the talk for playing for big prizes.
Chris Sims committed in 1999. Is that correct?
Yeah.
1999. I think it's 99, and then they started stacking classes. I think they started stacking classes, and I think that's kind of where we're at right now. Really, 13 years later. My math would be bad. 23 years later, I think you're kind of in the same situation where you were at with Chris Sims, because if you go look at those classes in 2000, 2001, 2002, right? What led you to, obviously your national champion 2005 was building those classes after him. But you also had defensive studs that actually joined that class after Chris Sims decided to sign with Texas.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, great players manifest great players, right? And somebody, I heard this on Twitter Spaces last night, and I almost lost it. But they compared Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning to what we had when Major Applewhite was on campus and Chris Sims came in. They said this is the exact same thing. I'm sorry, Major Applewhite doesn't have the arm talent of Quinn Ewers, and Chris Sims. Yes, his father was a professional quarterback, but I dare say that the Manning pedigree is a little bit better than the Sims pedigree. Absolutely. When you're talking about Peyton, Eli, and again, I'm not saying this. Peyton Manning said this. The father of Arch Manning is probably the best athlete among those 3 brothers, and his father Cooper, who, like I said, unfortunately went to Ole Miss ahead of Peyton as a receiver and got hurt. If you guys go back and watch the Book of Manning, fell ill, but probably Peyton says it's not me. It says the best athlete in the family. That's Archer's father. So I don't think Applewhite Sims is anything close to the potential of Ewers and Manning. Just my thoughts.
Eric Wickham here. We've gotten a lot of offensive transfers and recruits. It would be good to see the defensive side get some guys start going to score with stock clerks from HEB. We need some help with the defense, and that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I actually went back and I'm going to go back and look at some clips of Alabama in the national championship game or leading up to the national championship game with Sark's offense because I think it's going to be important. But I'm also going to go back and look at some Alabama tape. I was thinking about that game, that's going to happen the second week of the season this year. Sarkeesian knows Alabama. He knows Alabama. And this is, we'll get into that as the season starts, but he knows Alabama. He knows exactly what Bryce Young can and what he cannot do and what his weaknesses are. So I think that game's going to be fun, man. I really do. But when I thought about that game today, yes, you're going to have a situation where we probably have a true freshman going against Will Anderson in that game, which is tough for anybody. And you're probably going to have Ja'Tavion Sanders in like an inline tight end helping whoever that left tackle is against Will Anderson and their other defensive end and their linebacker. But it wasn't the offense I was concerned about. It's how the hell is that defense gonna stop Bryce Young in that offense? But I don't know why I brought that up, but I was just thinking about that game today. I'm gonna go back and watch some of that game film when I do have time. Because I think he's right. I think Steve Sarkeesian can score against anybody, and I think he can do it. But with the talent that he currently has right now, and the talent that he may have an opportunity to get soon on the 40 acres, it's not offense I'm worried about. It's the defense side of the ball. Absolutely, man.
So I do want to ask a favor of you guys. We haven't been on in a while. Surprised that 178 people are in here watching. Crazy. But please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't. I don't know about this show being fire. We're passionate about the Texas Longhorns. We're passionate about this football program. We're passionate about bringing decent content to you guys. So if you wouldn't mind, 177 folks in here. I have no idea what the likes are right now. But if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button or that subscribe button, if you have not, we would really appreciate it. So you asked me a question before we came on, and it kind of, because we're talking linebackers and defensive line, you asked me if you could have the choice, if Arch Manning could somehow get DJ Hicks back in the fold, which it looks like they have, or it has, what's the most important position on this football team, or who would you rather have, Anthony Hill or DJ Hicks? And I'm going to ask this question to the guys out there, because I wanted them both, because I said we could not stop the run, right? So I instantly think defensive lineman. I need defensive lineman. We could not rush the quarterback, so I immediately think defensive lineman. But after DeMarvion Overshown and some young kids like DJ Harris and guys that haven't produced a whole lot on the football field, what does the depth look like at linebacker? And so, yes, a guy like Anthony Hill, who I've watched Denton Ryan run 5 defensive linemen and have him as the sole linebacker just so he can run from sideline to sideline. They want their defensive lineman to eat up every blocker so that he can run sideline to sideline and make every play. So I'm going to ask this question to you guys. What's the most important position on the defense? If you could take one of 2 5-stars, if you could have DJ Hicks, the defensive lineman out of Katy, or if you could have Anthony Hill, the linebacker out of Denton, who would it be? And your thoughts on which one you would like, because I had to answer the question, so I think you should too. Even though I didn't really give an answer.
I think Hicks is probably that's rough, man, because I think you need both of them because of depth and elite talent. Hicks is a monster, man, and defensive linemen. There's such a disparity between a guy that's in the top 10 as a defensive lineman and a guy that's top 50 as a defensive lineman. There's a disparity, but you'll usually see them just like you see offensive tackles, not only high in the rankings. You see a guy like Hicks will be number 1, but then number 19 will be number 100 in the recruiting rankings.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a disparity between those guys. There's a disparity between 1 and 5 and 1 and 10. I don't think that disparity from linebacker is the same. When you're looking at ability to come in and play as a true freshman, I think if you have the ability as a defensive lineman and you have the size and the speed and the ability to use your hands to get off blocks, I think your ability to play faster is with the defensive lineman versus a linebacker. And people may disagree with this. So I'm going to say DJ Hicks would be my number 1. But I think what's important now is not so much linebacker. To me, it's the cornerbacks you currently have in the class that you have in the state of Texas that could have a potential of blocking down wide receivers to give your defensive line enough time to get to the quarterback. So your linebackers aren't having to rely on covered in space. So to me, it's not, I would honestly say Hill. And then I would probably go Taviano after that. And then I would say Hicks, or I would say Hicks, Taviano, Hill, those top 3 defensive guys in the class right now, probably followed by of Malik Muhammad. Those would be my top 4 defensive guys that are currently in the state that Texas, in that order, that should be their priority.
Yeah, I agree that you probably can get more production out of a defensive lineman. Again, sacks, tackles for loss. So Hicks is probably your most valuable player. Again, Anthony Hill is an absolute stud. So I kind of agree with you. I think David Hicks feels a position of greater need, then Anthony Hill, and then the 2 corners. But yeah, if I can get those 2 corners, then to lock receivers down, then I might be able to do a little bit less than DJ Hicks, right? Because pressure and coverage work together. But yeah, those are 4 guys, 3 from the Dallas area, and actually Hicks was living up in Allen last year. He's since gone back to Houston and living in Katy. But those are 3 Dallas area kids that are can't miss. Like I shouldn't say can't miss, because you dang sure could miss them, because everybody in the country wants them. But those are guys that if you can get on the 40 acres, your defense looks a heck of a lot better. Just appreciate the fact that we're in it for those guys. And yeah, I would agree with you though. Hicks, then Hill, and then the two corners for me.
So this is actually a really good question here. How hot is PK's seat with Gary Patterson on staff? I'm gonna tell you, I don't think Gary Patterson wants to be a defensive coordinator. I think he had an opportunity. I think he said it in a recent interview on 247 that he did with Chip Brown, that he had multiple Power 5 schools that reached out to him, and I would almost bet that A&M was probably one of those, because they were looking for a defensive coordinator at that same time, because Elko went on to be the head coach at Duke. But he had an opportunity to go be a defensive coordinator at Power 5 schools. He didn't want to take it. And I think some of that may be time off. But I think if he had an opportunity to go be a head coach somewhere, he would do it again. But he said if it was a school that could give him an opportunity to win a national championship somewhere. I don't think PK's seat's hot now. Now, obviously, our defense was horrid last year in statistics. I think 5.21 yards per. I think it was 5.2 yards per carry last year. Rushing is what you gave up. One of the worst defenses in Texas statistically in history. If that happens again, it's more than just PK's hot seat. This place would melt the hell down. You know what I'm saying? If you had a defense that looked like that this year. I think what Patterson does is, I think right now all he does is watch game films. I think he said he's watched, I think during this interview, I think he said he watched through game 4 or 5. And then what he does is regurgitates the information to Steve Sarkeesian and probably the defense staff, offensive staff, because he watches it from both sides. On the offensive side of the ball, this is what you should do defensively, because this is what their weaknesses are. I think Gary Patterson is in the best place he could possibly be right now, because he's doing camps. He has an opportunity. I think he talks to recruits. He's not having to spend a whole bunch of time. He can make his songs. He can probably play 6th Street. But at the same time, what he does, I think he's an advisor to not just Steve Sarkeesian on the offensive side of the ball, but I think he's an advisor to PK on the defense side of the ball. So I think he's in a great place. I think he loves what he's doing right now. I don't think he's on the hot seat. I would say if you don't see improvement, we could be talking about that come December, and I really don't want to have that conversation. No, I don't want to have that conversation.
No, 6.9 yards per carry on the edges against us. And you just can't set the edge, right? Yep. You need defensive ends to set the edge. You need outside linebackers to set the edge and turn the play back inside to your big guys so they can eat. If you're not setting the edge and guys are able to run around you and down the sidelines, then 6.9 yards per carry happens. But I do want to address this super chat. First off, thanks, Coach Cuddy, for the 1999 super chat. How much chance we have of getting Jaden Chapman, the offensive lineman from Killeen Harker Heights? Coach Cuddy, I'm living in Coppers Cove, and there's 2 players that I'm going to see more than once this year play high school football. And one of them is Jaden Chapman, and the other is Mikael Harrison Pilot. Killeen Harker Heights is way too close for me not to see this kid in person. I feel really good about this recruitment, as well as Mikael Harrison Pilot. So I will spend my money. I don't know if Killeen Harker Heights travels here to Coppers Cove, but wherever they play, I will definitely be checking out Jaden Chapman this year. And we'll give you more information as I get it. Hopefully I get a chance to talk to him in person and ask him those questions. But I feel really good about his recruitment. They were in on him early. And like I said, I'm going to see him and Mikael Harrison Pilot multiple times this year.
All right, Tracy, here we go. I know I may say all this all the time, but we need to get Clint some Texas swag, ain't nothing in the background. For some reason, my wife moved some stuff down here to the bottom of this shelf that used to be up here, Tracy. Not that I had a lot, but hey, I'm going to put my PayPal and my other stuff on Twitter. If you want to go ahead and put some money on that, I'm more than happy, and I will buy all the swag that is necessary, Tracy. Now, we'll get it fixed. We'll get it fixed soon, okay? And he says, stop turning around. There's nothing back there. I know I was looking to see where that Texas Longhorn Inca mask that I got from Mexico happens to be down at the bottom of the shelf. She must not like it a lot. So she put it down at the bottom of the shelf when it used to be on the second shelf up here, or I moved it before we did shows. I don't know. One of the two. So we'll get it fixed though, Tracy.
Mike said you need a helmet back there. Yeah, I agree. And my wife went out and bought when I was in California. Good. When I was in California, I really like the old retro stuff, like the T-shirt I have now, like the Sailor Longhorn, and there's a couple of old school Texas, what's the word? Not logos, but basically the old school Texas stuff. So she got 2 canvases. Hopefully she gets those painted for me, and I got 2 spots for them right up here. For the old Texas logos. The military stuff might have to move out eventually into another room and completely swag this thing out of Texas. But I agree. Clint's got that nice brick veneer, those nice bookshelves. There needs to be some UT regalia hanging out back there during these shows. I completely agree, Tracy.
I'm working right now. Texas Longhorn. I'm with you. I think it was Max. He said I need a helmet back there. I'm actually going to purchase this helmet as soon as we get off here, and then we'll have a beautiful Longhorn helmet in the background during our shows. All right.
Oh, he said one brother's a real fan, the other brother's slacking, and then they said the bird has to go.
The bird up here, yeah, The bird's got to go. So the helmet's going to replace the bird. All right.
Oh my God.
Tracy said, Ed Johnny Munoz, I could see Clint and Jeremy wearing them. The helmets during the show?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
With a mouthpiece in. Yeah. And we'll just have to take the mouthpiece out to talk. That is perfect. Damn, Johnny Munoz, where'd he come from? I ain't seen him in like 4 months.
I don't know. Astros baseball must not be on right now. He normally, when the Stros are on, he doesn't tune in. He has to catch us after the fact. But no, really appreciate the super chat. And like I said, I'd love to see any guys in Central Texas. We're going to try and get out and see this year. Would love to go to College Station as much as we hate the place to check on this 7-on-7 tournament. I had no idea it was being played. That's how far to the loop we are. We generally follow the 7-on-7 circuit pretty close and know when the state championship's being played. It snuck right by us. But yeah, I did look at the bracket tonight. Some great football teams. So if you get a chance to go out there, I don't know what tickets are, but the bracket. I think Dave Campbell's Texas football put out the championship bracket tonight. I know DeSoto's first game is tomorrow against a team from. I'm going to say from the Dallas area. I know McKinney's below them in another bracket, but yeah, go see. Get a chance to watch Jonte Cook, Trey Wisner, some guys that Texas is looking at. Unfortunately, you had to go to College Station to see it. But check that stuff out. I would have loved to have gone.
We had a bulldog in here. I love beer cans and baddies tonight. We appreciate you showing up, man. It's nice. When Texas found out they were going to the SEC, one of the things that happened when we got on here that we had a lot of SEC teams and some dudes get on here and chat and stuff, and we definitely don't mind that, beer cans and baddies. So welcome to the chat, man, and definitely like the name there, dude. And congratulations on your national championship. And I think one of the questions he asked is Texas ready to come to the SEC or ready to go to the SEC? Absolutely. We both think it's the obviously the best conference in college football, and there's no better place to be than playing the best. Definitely excited, but definitely got to do some work before we get there.
Yeah, that's what we figured out last year when the SEC does hit different. We were introduced to that against Arkansas, and they were in every live show, pregame show, postgame show, every live show that we did. We found some Bama Crimson Tide fans, some Georgia Bulldogs, some LSU Tigers, Arkansas Razorbacks. They were all in here telling us where they're from, and we enjoy that because you don't get that with Big 12 fan bases that often. You hear a little bit from OU, and that's about it. So yeah, no, it definitely makes the live shows a little bit more interesting when the SEC fan bases hop in here, and like you say, we don't shy away from competition. Excited to join that conference and compete against the best. Again, we're already recruiting against the best. Those are the same schools you see for the team, for the players that we're talking about. Again, Arch Manning was a Georgia guy. Alabama wanted Arch Manning. Texas won that race. But same thing with Jonte Cook. Alabama was on his list. Cedric Baxter, I'm sure the top SEC schools are on his list. So yeah, we're ready to go.
Look at this comment. Look at this comment. The best comment we had all night long. Best one all night. We haven't heard the dogs bark yet. That's funny because Jeremy, I think yours are down there, right? So usually when they're asleep, are they down there?
They went out. They went out. No,
okay.
they took off.
Yeah. So I think mine are upstairs sleeping too, which is weird because if you listen to us long enough, you know that that's definitely something you're going to get in the show. It's either some dogs snoring or some dogs barking, one of the two. But definitely, yeah, they must be asleep or something because we ain't heard no dogs bark either.
No, it's eerily quiet, really. Oh man, how this is fun.
It is. So this is what I'm most excited about. Beer cans and baddies. We've enjoyed Texas A&M, Texas ATM so far in the SEC. I think it's great to see Texas in ATM again restore their rivalry game. Honestly, that's what I'm most excited about. I think it's I think that rivalry is never going to be put to bed if we don't ever play again. And fortunately for us, we went into Kyle Field and kicked their ass in the last meeting. But again, what they've done in the SEC, what they've done with recruiting classes, is definitely going to be exciting. It sounds like when we do join, it sounds like we will play them again annually. And I think the first one's going to be at Kyle Field, which I couldn't imagine the craziness of that, of probably 120,000 fans. It might break some records as far as people watching on television too.
I want to answer this question real quick. Devin Campbell, Kelvin Banks, Cole Hudson, Connor Robertson. If I could have told you after a 5-7 season that would be the kind of offensive line haul you'd have at the end of February. Again, hype is created by us. These student athletes don't create the hype for themselves. It's recruiting services who go out there and watch them play on Friday nights who create stars for them. They create the hype. What I do know is that the University of Texas football team wanted them. And I saw the kind of performance that the offensive line that we had last year put up. So I don't know how many of those young football players are going to start. I don't know where they're going to end up on the depth chart. But what I do know is we needed to establish depth. So we went out and got numbers, right? I don't know how they're going to perform. I believe they're going to – 2 or 3 of them are going to be starters by the end of the year. Who that may be, I don't know. But they don't have too far to go to replace the ones that were before them. So, again, hype is created by us. Hype is created by the media. They don't self-create it. All they do is go to practice and perform on Saturdays. So I think we got good football players in that offensive line room. And I think that 22 class was rated as the number 1 offensive line class for a reason. How they're going to turn out, we don't know. That's been the question we've been asking ourselves for years. Is it Italian? Texas brings in great recruiting classes every year. Are we bad talent evaluators or are we bad developers? Because 5-star classes or top 5 classes shouldn't equal 5 and 7. But what's the issue? Are we bringing in the wrong players? Are we not? Or is it a bad culture? Is it the coaching changes over and over and over again? Or is it we can't develop talent? I'm not sure. But what I do know is I'm excited about those guys that I mentioned earlier and excited to see them progress and see where that takes us.
All right.
Yeah, and there's guys I didn't even mention like Ogbo and Neto, and it's a stud class.
All right. So this is off topic, and this is something that me and Jeremy will come up with a call sign. So the next time we're on here, Johnny Munoz, we'll give you an answer. Okay. If you were pilots in the Air Force, what would your call signs be? All right. I got to think about it. Jeremy's going to think about it. We'll come up with call signs, and we'll give you an answer on the next show. All right. Call signs. I'm going to have to write a note down because I'll probably forget. But call signs. You got it? Call signs.
Yep.
All right. We owe you that.
If we were fighter pilots?
If we were fighter pilots in the Air Force, what would our call signs be?
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna put it up here. I'm gonna get a wooden block with my call sign. It's gonna go up here with my Texas Longhorn helmet and all of my other Texas Longhorn stuff. All right.
Yeah, Top Gun's in my top 3 with Remember the Titans and Tombstone, like of movies. Like I haven't seen the sequel. Just got back in town a couple of weeks ago, and it came out while I was in California doing that military training. So I did say that was one of the first things I wanted to do when I got back to town was watch that sequel, because it is in my top 5.
Gamers Life here, second straight Directors Cup win. Y'all speak on the athletic department as a whole. SEC getting Texas brings a lot of titles to the conference. Again, a conversation I was having last night on the phone, I was talking about this Directors Cup and the way that the program, obviously outside of what we've done in football, the program as a whole. And I know people laugh at your swimming trophies, they laugh at nothing other than football. But when your baseball team is making it to the College World Series, 38 out of, 38 times they made it and 37 times they didn't? Which is crazy. Your basketball team did what they did. Both of them, softball team making it to the national championship game against Oklahoma. The list goes on and on and on with these programs are doing. Volleyball's a mainstay in the top 3 every year. So yes, as an athletic program, what Chris Del Conte's done, what President Hartzell's done as a president of the University of Texas in just subtle tweets that he made about Arch Manning yesterday is important for the program as a whole. But yeah, the program this year and what they've been able to do in winning championships or finishing in the top 3 or top 4 and everything they've done, track and field, the list goes on and on and on. It shows you where this athletic department is going. Now we just got to get that program that's eyes on all the time. That program's got to be at the same level as all these other championship level programs.
That's what Rod Baber says that all the time is that overall as an athletic department, you're thriving, but what sells tickets is football. Your baseball team, like I said, 38 College World Series appearances and 75 tries, over half. We're going to talk basketball in the fall, but Chris Beard is getting these kids to stay. The same team that went to the tournament last year underperformed as we thought they would preseason, but bring in the Marcus Carrs and Timmy Allens and Christian Bishops together for their first year together and expecting them to grow when you had 9 new guys. A lot of those guys are coming back, and you got Dylan Mitchell coming into the class. But yeah, you're looking great across the landscape of all sports, whether it be those sports that aren't scholarship sports, but they're still competing against other universities. So I don't think you discount it at all. And it's fantastic. But like you say, football is what the University of Texas is known for, and it has to catch up with baseball, and it has to catch up with the other sports that are winning national championships or at least competing for national championships.
So Bob Maloney asked here, what branch were y'all again? Y'all were Air Force? No. So Jeremy's still active duty Army, and then I retired from the Army 2019 was my last year in Army after 22 years. So we're both Army guys. Jeremy's still active duty, and I am a retired Army veteran. I had another question up here, and I can't find it. From Eric Wickham here, do we get Muhammad and Taviano at DB or just one of them or none? If I was to make a guess today, I would say probably Taviano would probably be I would say we have a better chance of landing him now. And the reason I say that is because Muhammad, I think, is between us, Texas A&M, who I believe he is currently in College Station this weekend, and Alabama. And you can never go wrong with being a defensive back and going to Alabama with Nick Saban there and the way that they've been able to get their defensive backs to the NFL. So I'm going to say Taviano, just based on that you don't really hear a lot from him. I don't even know if he's taken any officials. I don't think he's taking
it's
any.
crazy.
You don't hear anything from him, but I think everybody believes he's going to Texas. I know he's been to Texas one time. He doesn't talk. So I'm going to go Taviano, but I think there is a chance that we land both of these highly rated cornerbacks in this class. So
yeah, I think you get them both. I think, like you said, you don't hear very much from a top 25 player. One of the best cornerbacks in the country in Javian Taviano. You have the Martin pipeline there with Texas. He came a couple of times last year. Malik Muhammad's been to Texas more recently, but I think you end up with both of them. I do.
I'm looking at some of these call signs. Their call sign will be baby oil in a volleyball. I don't know what that means, and neither did Tracy Williams because he added him and said he didn't understand that.
Yeah, you're hoping the same thing we are, Randy. We think skill positions are set and really want that defense to get shored up. And if Arch can have that impact to bring those five-star blue chip offensive linemen, and I won't stop with defensive linemen. I need defensive linemen, linebackers, and secondary folks. As many good ones as I can get. Because like I said, if that depth chart is full with three 5-stars and 5 stars are talking about transferring out, then the program's in a good spot. Let's got to bring a dog in here, I think, and get to call timeout. So yeah, I totally agree, Randy, with your sentiments.
We had our first dog interruption. We had our first. I mean, I think let's see if we. I don't know if we can see her down there.
No,
she's somewhere. She's there down there. She's down there somewhere. First dog interruption. My wife decided she wanted to go out on a run. I don't know, 7:42. It's probably 95 degrees outside. Hopefully she's going to be okay. Drink water, I told her. But then the dogs decided to come downstairs, I guess, and then they started scratching on the door. So we have our first dog sighting. I thought we were going to not have to worry about it, but here we are.
Hey, we were up to, I don't know where we're at right now, but we were up to 202 folks watching our show, which is very surprising to myself and Clint, I'm sure, after we took 3 months off of doing this. But thank you so much for joining us. We're about an hour and 12 minutes into the show. We've talked Arch Manning's effect on the program, on the 23 recruiting class. We got an update from Jonte Cook, who now has a top 3 of Michigan, Oregon, and Texas. And we still feel pretty good about that recruitment. Again, a big visitors weekend this weekend. As a matter of fact, Jonte will be down on campus tomorrow after the 7-on-7 tournament's complete in College Station. But just please hit us with a like. Please subscribe to our channel if you have not. We've gotten quite a few as we've been talking during this podcast, and really appreciate it. Like Clint said, we've gone out of the reassurance business or the guarantee business of how many shows we're going to do a week or a month. All we can tell you is we're going to attempt to do one show a week. We're going to try to collaborate with other YouTube creators, other guys from 247, rivals, probably create a relationship with the guys at On3 to try to do some collaborations when he's not available. And then again, I'm willing to come on for 10, 15, 20 minutes with any big updates that we may have. It's just not, we don't really enjoy doing the show by ourselves, but willing to do that just to give you guys content, and appreciate again your viewership, and please hit that like button. Absolutely. We got one thing right in here, but it's happened to catch it before we get off here from Dre McBuckets. Hey, I'm thinking about going back in the Army as an officer. I have questions. If give you our Twitter handle real quick, because that's the easiest way to reach out to us via DMs. It's going to be at Texas Football Talk on Twitter. So if you have any questions specifically about that, Jeremy would be the best one to do that. He actually went from enlisted to officer. So definitely reach out with those questions. But like Jeremy said, we appreciate each and every one of y'all joining us tonight. Again, we thought it was going to be a really slow show, Friday night, 6:30.
and we haven't been on in a while. So we didn't know what was going to happen. It was like rocket science behind here, trying to pull up stuff and put it down and pull up stuff and put it down. But other than, this dog here scratching at the door just now, I think it went pretty well. But we appreciate y'all listening. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Texas Football Talk, on Facebook at, I can't even do this anymore, at Texas Football Talk, right? Find us on Texas Football Talk. But we appreciate you listening. As always, please hit that like button. If you have not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And we won't promise we're going to do the next show, but I'm going to tell you, we missed this and we'll be back. So, and I think Tracy Williams wants to ask if anybody wants to do some officiating in Texas here. So find Tracy Williams on Twitter if you're interested in being a football official, I think high school, if I'm not mistaken. So find Tracy on Twitter as well. So, all right, y'all have a wonderful night and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.